Cable Bahamas employs over 500 people. Of the 500, how many of them do you think are Bahamian?
About 3/4.
Okay.
I will say 80%.
I would say all.
All?
I would say about 98%.
98%.
Yes.
I was going about 80%, so, but 98 sounds better.
I'd say 80%.
I think about 95% of them are Bahamian, yes.
What if I told you 99%?
99% of the people is Bahamian?
99%.
That's true?
Excellent.
Yeah? So Cable Bahamas is entirely for the Bahamian people.
That is correct. Cable Bahamas is widely represented by Bahamians.
Well, now you know.
Despite rising tensions, Bahamar's principals go back to the negotiating table with government. This as most Bahamar workers were reportedly paid today. Some Marathon residents skeptical about the findings of that PAHO report. Plus, 19-year-old Stephen Gardner defeats the world champion. We've got those stories and more tonight. I'm Kyle Joaquin, and NB12 starts right now. Topping news tonight, despite the harsh public criticisms, the players in the Bahama saga have told Supreme Court Justice Ian Winder today they want to go back to the negotiating table in good faith and try to bring this matter to conclusion. Meantime, Minister of State for Legal Affairs Damian Gomez said pretty much all Bahamar employees should have received their salaries today. Dana Smith reports.
Although he confirmed Bahamar employees would be receiving salaries today, Gomez couldn't confirm the exact amount government is spending or whether or not expatriate workers would be receiving salaries as well.
We had requested the information from Bahamar. Some of it was provided last week. The rest of it was provided on Monday. We immediately contacted our bankers, and because of the nature of the information, it wasn't possible to immediately effect payment to the individual employee.
Gomez said he's not aware just how much government put forth to pay for the salaries, and he's not sure if foreign workers are being paid as well, though he added they may. Gomez's comments come after Bahamar slammed government last night for not yet paying employees, calling it disgraceful. In response, government hit out at Bahamar, with the Prime Minister voicing grave concerns over the state of Bahamar's CEO's state of mind. This as Bahamar's contractor, China Construction America, entered the fray, hitting out at Bahamar for its misplaced decision to file for bankruptcy. But when asked, Gomez said such comments are not unusual in litigation, and he's hopeful all the parties can put aside the vitriolic and work things out before the next court date.
There's potential for that, and it's hoped that the parties can put aside the vitriolics that's been a recent feature of this and get down to resolving the issues so that we can report in 7 days to His Lordship that we are making good progress or that we have reached a settlement.
Gomez was also asked about the tone of the negotiations, considering the blunt statements released by government and Bahamar.
Well, we are shocked by the application to the Delaware court, and that's played out in the press.
Though he added he's sure the relationship between government and Bahamar can be mended.
Well, that's the whole point of the negotiations. And we will proceed. We are hopeful that we will have a resolution sooner rather than later.
Attorneys for government, Bahamar, and the Export-Import Bank of China were all back in the Supreme Court this morning. But this time, another player has joined the application, China Construction America. The group appeared before Justice Ian Winder, who granted Bahamar an adjournment on its application seeking authorization of U.S. court orders, so that the company could return to good faith negotiations with the project's lender and contractor. Bahamar's attorney, Roy Sweeting, asked for an adjournment, and the other parties had no objections. CCA's lawyer explained in court the construction company is interested in negotiating in good faith, but wants to join the court matter just in case things don't work out. Attorney Sean Morey represents CCA. He told the court more than 400 employees have done work at the site since February without payment. And due to the size of his client's claim and the integral role CCA intends to play in negotiations, his client should be joined. Winder granted the motion. Gomez said in court the AG's office is anxious for all the parties to meet to resolve outstanding issues concerning the project. He added the Exim Bank president spoke at length with Prime Minister Perry Christie and is hopeful of a resolution to the impasse. Lester Mortimer, who appeared on behalf of Cable Bahamas, said he was prepared to await the outcome of negotiations before moving forward. Exim Bank's attorney Brian Sims said although he had no objection to an adjournment, the court should be updated on the status of the negotiations. The matter was adjourned until July 20th, but attorneys will meet prior to that on July 14th for a status hearing on the negotiations to be heard in chambers. In a statement from Bahamar released today, the company said Bahamar's singular focus is to do all it realistically can to enable Bahamar to be completed and opened successfully as soon as practicable. Therefore, we welcome the parties' agreement today to our motion for the adjournment of these proceedings to July 20th. We look forward to engaging in substantive discussions with the parties to try and reach a consensual resolution that will allow us to move forward and acknowledge the government's constructive role in those conversations. Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
Before today's court appearance, things were looking extremely rocky for relations among the principals, leaving many to think that relations were getting much worse than many people thought.
Bahamar has been kept on time and on budget through the diligent work of China State Construction, their team, and nearly 400 locally owned firms who have put almost 2,000 Bahamians to work already.
That was Bahamar CEO Sarkis Ismailian in 2013 at the topping off ceremony praising China State Construction America for then keeping the project on time. But now, just over 2 years later, a lot has changed and Ismailian is singing a different tune. After seeing 3 delays in the grand opening, Ismailian has already blamed China State Construction more than once. But just after midnight in a press statement, China Construction America hit back, saying Bahamar's decision to file for bankruptcy protection in Delaware is the direct result of its failure to secure adequate financing and its mismanagement of the design of the resort project at Cable Beach. The company continued, saying, since February 2015, CCA Bahamas and our subcontractors have performed nearly $72 million of contract work for which we have received no payment. Our aggregate investment in and commitment to the project, including money advanced by CSCEC on behalf of the developer, approximates $220 million. We have continually acted in good faith in the performance of this work, reliant upon the belief that Bahamar Limited would fulfill its responsibilities as the owner. But that's not the only relationship that's been falling apart.
Therefore, the first order of business is that we impress upon the developers the need for very close cooperation and collaboration.
Since 2012, Christie has been stressing his concerns for Bahamar, but it all came to a head last night after the Prime Minister in a press statement said he was disappointed in both the intemperate tone and incorrect content of a statement released by Bahamar earlier that day. Bahamar had called government's failure to pay employees disgraceful, unconscionable, and disappointing. Bahamar also accused the Christie administration of concocting a sideshow for its own purposes. Well, that didn't sit too well with Christie, who said he has grave concerns over the state of Ismailian's mind. He said he must stop playing fast and loose with the facts to serve his own ends. He ought to know full well that the delay in effecting payment to the workers had absolutely nothing to do with any stalling or obstructive action on the government's part. The Ministry of Finance had stated earlier that day that the delay was the result of government not getting certain payroll information from Bahamar. But with all 3 parties now in court, the fate of the $3.5 billion mega resort hangs in limbo. Meanwhile, government has decided that the $7.5 million intended to pay Bahamar workers this month will come from the $21 million it agreed to pay Bahamar to cover its share costs for the new West Bay Street and associated infrastructure. Our news team understands that the Prime Minister was advised by his economic advisors that failure to pay workers would have significant negative implications for the national economy. And by agreeing to pay the workers, the government believes it has removed any pressure it might have faced to support Bahamar's bid for the Bahamian courts to approve orders granted by a U.S. court last week. is Merlian, we understand, is interested in resuming talks with Chinese partners. Some Marathon residents refuse to accept the recent assessment and evaluation exercise of the Rubis spill in Marathon by Pan American Health Organization at face value. Simone Davis reports.
Members of Justice for Marathon say they will not accept the results by PAHO, claiming that no resident was exposed to dangerous levels of contaminants from the Rubis oil spill. Marathon residents say they were baffled by the results because some of them are awaiting their own results from the Elizabeth Estates Clinic to determine if they were exposed to dangerous chemicals or not. Latoya Hanna says some residents have been tested positive for chemical exposure, while many have yet to be tested and most are still waiting on results.
The concerns we have from the PAHO statements yesterday are in reference to the amount of sampling that has been conducted, because what we know from live residents is that many of them have still not been tested to this date. Many of them have been told that they cannot find their results when they went to Elizabeth Estates Clinic to collect results. Many persons have not received results as yet, and we are also very much concerned because we would like to know how much information has been provided to the toxicologists in reference to this matter.
Minister of Health Dr. Perry Gomez said yesterday that health assessments were recently conducted on 223 people, and the results showed that based on the tests performed thus far, there has been no significant adverse effects on individuals tested. Hannah questioned how it is possible that 223 people were tested negative when there's a cluster of illnesses and there were several cancer-related deaths in the area in the past few months.
We would like for them to now explain to us the cluster of illnesses and cancer-related deaths. In this last month alone, we have lost 4 of our residents, and we will bury one on July 18th, and she died from a very aggressive form of cancer. And so until that all can be explained to us, we are still very much concerned in Marathon. As well as yesterday, they spoke about the well water testing. We're still, again, very much concerned because from live residents, we know for certain that water has not been tested.
She said the well water in many areas have not been tested and the water is still contaminated with oil, and demanded that residents be connected to city water at no cost. One resident said he's been living in the Marathon area for about 3 years and he's worried about his family and elderly neighbors who he claims became ill from the fumes of the oil spill.
If the government of the Bahamas is not going to look out for the residents of Marathon, well, the residents of Marathon need to get up and start letting the world know what's going on. Let the world judge if we're wrong. I don't think we're wrong. Who's going to stop me from going to the back of my yard to plant a tree? Them. You know why? Because the ground is contaminated. Do I have to pay for a land that is contaminated? What's going to happen to my children? My children, my grandchildren, if this land is contaminated? This is a serious thing.
Member of Parliament for Marathon Jerome Fitzgerald said yesterday that he was pleased with PAHO's report findings and chastised individuals for politicizing the Rubis oil spill. But Marathon residents say they are still not pleased and extended this invitation to their MP.
Since the Member of Parliament Jerome Fitzgerald has indicated that the water is safe, we invite him now to join us in our homes and have a glass of the water since it is safe.
2017, Mr. Fitzgerald, be prepared to drink water when you come for our votes.
Gomez said testing and screenings will continue, and once the assessment is finalized, it would be made public. Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
Clients who utilize the Sandyport Post Office have been inconvenienced for about a month now. This as the mailman has reportedly not been coming around often, and now the post office is in a mess.
For over the past month, we have been experiencing delays in the receipt of our mail. I've personally went to the main post office, to the acting Postmaster General, and to no avail.
That's Dr. Andon Ward. He's one of hundreds who rent a mailbox at the Sandyport Post Office. The building, now with garbage scattered all around the floor and on top of mailboxes, was once a place of pride, according to Ward. But now he says with no attention from those responsible, he's been coming to an empty mailbox with missorted mail just lying around.
The garbage is, as you can see, is overpiling. That wine bomb has been there for about 3 weeks. Persons have resorted to putting mail on the outside. If they see a missort in their box, they will put mail on the outside because they can't rely on putting it in the missed sorts. No one comes to collect the missed sorts, so you can put it in the relevant mail. Door, there's no, well, one lock, but if you look through the hole, you will see mail all on the floor. So obviously the mailman who came here, we just throw the mail down. The mail isn't in the box.
The drop box for missorted mail has begun to brim over, with the mail now falling on the floor. With this, folks who received other people's mail by accident resorted to sticking them in the edge of another's mailbox. One of them, a piece of mail containing a customer's social security information. Ward says when he contacted the acting postmaster general to question the neglect, he was shocked at the response.
She did relay that one of the trucks were down, with one vehicle being down and another person saying that they are not prioritizing the mail for Sandy Port. This correct, which is quite astounding.
We reached out to Postmaster General Debbie Pennerman for comment. However, all efforts were unsuccessful up to airtime. And 19-year-old Bahamian 400-meter runner Stevie Gardiner made his country proud today when he outran LaShawn Merritt to win the gold at a meet in Budapest, Hungary. The up-and-coming sprint sensation set a new national record last week at home, but took his speed to the other side of the world, beating out a competitive lineup, including the world champion in a time of 44.3 seconds.
Most ahogy bejönnek, és jön az utolsó 80 méter, akkor LaShawn Merritt elindul, de jön mögötte Stephen Gardiner, és a bahamai meg fogja verni. 44-31. Óriási versenycsúcs. Óriási versenycsúcs, ez tavaly Chris Brown futott a 45-21-jel, több mint egy másodperc, nem, kevesebb mint egy másodperc, de majdnem egy másodperccel. Stephen Gardiner